Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Lourdes, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. As we said earlier, this space is a reflection of our multicultural, lingual community. And this is why today we will be providing interpretation in Spanish, in Asian Creole, and English with mob language services to ensure that we can all participate and have access to this information in the language that we prefer. We also have the pleasure to be working alongside our ASL interpretation colleagues today. This space will be a multilingual space where all Spanish, English, and Creole will be spoken. So if you prefer to listen in English only, if you're able to, would like to ask you to please activate the Zoom interpretation feature that will be posted on the chat that we'll be sharing with you right now. So if you would like to listen in English, you're going to have to choose English as your language of preference. You're going to click on the interpretation globe at the lower right side of your screen and choose the language English. And if you're connecting to Zoom via your phone, please click on the three dots at the bottom right of the corner of your phone and tap the language, interpretation language, and choose English, which will allow you to listen into English. Once you're done, touch done at the top right corner to ensure that you remain in the English channel. If you have any issues at all with interpretation, or if you have issues listening or participate, please let us know via chat so we can support you. And it's a loving reminder to everyone that will be speaking on this space this afternoon to speak at the moderate space so that we, the interpreters, will be able to interpret everything that you're saying. And then we don't want to leave anyone behind. Thank you. Over.
Hi, this is Debbie speaking. Thank you so much. We are going to continue with our presentation, and I'm going to let Camilo Mejia welcome everybody today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Camilo Mejia. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at Catalyst Miami. We're one of the partners of the Enable Project, and we're very happy to be bringing you this session on housing. It is the first of three. The second one is going to be in April 14th, and will be on technology. And then the last one for this cycle will be on domestic violence and sexual assault. And I believe that will be May 5th. We will keep you informed about progress. And as always, we will make sure that you get the materials in case you want to share them with your base or with partners, members of your networks who are not able to make it today. With that, I thank you, and we'll see you again at the end of the program.
Today, as you've heard already, we take effective communication and being inclusive very seriously. So to ensure that this program goes as smoothly as possible, we want to make sure that you mute your microphone unless you're speaking, that you always speak slowly and clearly. And please use your raise hand function or the chat feature for your questions and comments. And let's always take turns when we get to the discussion part and we're speaking. For our guests today that are new to the way we do trainings, you're gonna notice the American Sign Language interpreters that are part of this presentation. You'll see that there are two interpreters. They're going to rotate and switch approximately every 15 minutes so that each interpreter gets to rest a little throughout the presentation. We also have the ability for captions. We actually have a human that's typing today, the captions. So if you'd like to turn on the captions, there's two ways you can do that today. You can use the caption button, or the captioner has put a link in the chat that you can click on in order to see the captions. Today, we're going to start our training a little different because I want to honor and recognize a woman named Judy Heumann. You can see a colorized picture of her on the screen and a quote from the Washington Post. She is considered the mother of disability rights, and she's a badass. She passed away this week, and everybody around the country and the world has been honoring her in different ways. And I wanted to make sure, since that we're doing a disability training, that we also honor her. So I took a short video that was done about her, and I want to share it with you today so that you, if you don't know who she is, you can learn a little bit about the amazing life she's had and the impact she's had on the disability community.
Judy Heumann, who has been called the mother of the disability rights movement, has died at the age of 75. President Biden, in a statement noting her passing, called her a, quote, trailblazer, a rolling warrior for disability rights in America. Heumann, who lost her ability to walk at age 2 after contracting polio, lobbied for legislation that led to the passage of the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act. Tonight, we hear her in her own words as we revisit her brief but spectacular take on the disability rights movement.
When I was 5 years old in Brooklyn, New York, on East 38th Street, my mother did what every other parent did when their kid was 5. She took me to school to register me. And this was in the early 1950s. There were no motorized wheelchairs, so she pushed me to school, and it wasn't accessible. She pulled me up the steps, and the principal said I couldn't go to school because I was a fire hazard. I don't really know that there was an explanation. It just was. I think the average person, they see disability as a threat to not being able to do things as people have typically done them. And I think there's truth in that. But the question is it because one has a disability, or because society itself has constructed itself in such a way because they haven't seen us? Discrimination against disabled people has existed from the beginning of time. And we're in a place right now where, because of other movements, civil rights movement, the women's movement, Black Lives Matter movement, etc., people are speaking up and out. One of the first pieces of legislation that the disability community really engaged in was getting regulations developed for a provision of law called Section 504. Section 504 says you can't discriminate against someone who has a disability if the entity is receiving money from the federal government. It was the first time that many of these young disabled people felt a part of something and really felt that they were making a difference, not only for their lives, but for the lives of many others. There is a shift, I believe, going on in our society where we're looking at race and gender equality and disability as issues that we need to address, that diversity is something that makes our companies stronger, that diverse businesses provide better services for customers. I also am a very big believer that the disability rights community cannot stand on its own. We need to be working with all other movements, and we want all other movements to be inclusive of disabled people. If we are actively learning and working together, we can do things like make sure when housing is being built in our communities that it's accessible, not just for people who have physical disabilities today, but if you're going to have a physical disability tomorrow. I think having a disability really has allowed me to do and get in touch with so many things and opportunities that otherwise would not have happened. People look at us as the label of our disability, and it is a part of who we are, but it is not who we are. My name is Judy Human, and this is my brief but spectacular take on the disability rights movement.
Hers was a life that made a difference.
Absolutely. She will be missed.
Okay, so I thought it was a very nice way to summarize the work that Judy has done. If you want to learn more and you're curious, I have two recommendations for you. One is to watch the movie Crip Camp. It is on Netflix. Or to read her book called Being Human. It is a phenomenal book that talks about her life and the work she's done. And the work she's done has been truly transformational for all people with disabilities, regardless of the type of disability they have. And just as a personal note, I was lucky enough to work with Judy. I was interviewed on her podcast about voting rights and voting with a disability in the 2020 election. And it was one of the highlights of my career as a disability rights advocate. She was smart and challenged me and engaging and lovely. So I just wanted to take this time to share her with you and introduce her to you if you didn't know who she was or why she matters. Thank you. As Camilo said, we're going to have 3 trainings this year for the Enable Project. And you can see on the screen the 3 dates and the topics that we will be talking about. If you want to register for these events, you can go on my organization's website, Disability Independence Group, which is justdigit.org. Go to our calendar and you can find the trainings and register. The work that we're doing for this project is funded by the Ford Foundation. So we always like to give credit to our funder in our presentations. We also have Chaplain Besa Buell to guide us in mindfulness activities. She's going to start the training by centering us, and then in the middle of the training, she will join us again and verbally guide us through a practice exercise. You can see Besa's picture on the screen. She actually was not able to join us today because today is her ordination day with the Upaya Monastery. So she's actually traveled to the monastery for the ordination ceremony. But Besa so wanted to be part of the training that we recorded her sections for you so that we did not lose the mindfulness for the presentation. So please look at the slides. You'll see Chaplain Besa Buell. Her company is the Gray Tea Kettle Chaplaincy. And she likes to create a safe space for triggering discussions and a place for people to be seen and heard. On the screen, you're going to see her website information and her email address. And now here's Besa.
So hello, everyone. I'm your embodiment facilitator today. My name is Besa Buell. I'm an endorsed humanist chaplain and a diversity, equity, and inclusion educator. I'm also spiritual director and community minister, providing decolonized trauma and emotional support through my organization. On the slide, you can see my contact information is chaplainbesa@grayteakettle.com and my website. So hello, everyone. Today, we're going to engage in practices to gather our attention and focus. So what becomes activated is the premotor cortex as we ground ourselves in compassionate embodiment. We are coming from a place that is about great kindness and care, with the aspiration to benefit others, and that we are in alignment with our character. It is important as a chaplain to create a container of safe space, because during our program, you may find yourself triggered because we each come from different situations, trauma, and experiences of life. So having this container of safe space is important. And I want you to be aware of what you can expect in our time together. So right now, we're going to take a moment to create the sacred space. This will be a safe place. This will be a sacred and holy place, a place without time, a place where we are all welcome, feel seen, heard, and supported. And so we're going to make an intention. Today, we're going to make an intention that we're going to practice together to witness each other's humanity, stories, and journeys. We open our hearts to be present and open. We understand that this will not instantly remove the pain and trauma we have experienced throughout our lives. However, today, we make an intention to shift so that it will be a soothing balm to reset our souls and community. Now, let us take a moment to reset our nervous system, to be present together. I'd like us to engage in a guided body scan and take a deep cleansing breath through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Let's do this 3 times. And inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Again, an inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And finally, an inhale through your nose and an exhale through your mouth. And feel your body in the chair or seat that you are in. Feel your whole body in this space. If you feel dizzy or you feel sensations in your body, that's your body talking to you. So be gentle with yourself. Feel the ground or whatever surface that is at your feet, just so you're connecting with your body. And reflect for 1 minute and observe what has come up for you. It could be a physical sensation. It could be an emotion, a thought, a memory. Still breathing while we are noticing what is happening inside of our bodies. And now that we have noticed, we focus back into the space of this community, of this workshop, and we are back in the space again. Thank you.
It's very calming the way that Besa speaks, and a very nice way to start our presentation. If you don't know, my name is Debbie Dietz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Disability Independence Group, or DIG for short. DIG is a nonprofit advocacy center for disability rights. Our mission is to expand opportunities for participation, education, employment, and acceptance of persons with disabilities through advocacy, litigation, education, and training. This is the 3rd year in a row that we have decided to do a training on housing. We keep discussing housing because it is a core component of independent living for a person with a disability. A person with a disability is no different from any other person. As an adult, we want to be independent and live on our own. We don't want to have someone tell us where we can live or how we can live. We want to make those choices ourselves. Having that independence gives a person a sense of worth and meaning. As an independent adult, we can decorate our homes, paint our walls, whatever color we want, and pick out our furniture and knickknacks or items that we place around the house. This builds self-worth and makes us the unique people that we are. People with disabilities want to be treated like everyone else. They want to have the same rights and abilities to do that. Unfortunately, because of stereotypes, people with disabilities don't always get to have those choices in housing. Some people can live independently and want to, and some people can't. But we want to try to make housing as accessible as possible for as many people with disabilities as possible. And usually all it takes is a simple modification or requesting an accommodation for a person with a disability to be able to live wherever they want in the community. Today, you're going to hear from two people with disabilities and their experiences with housing. And then you're going to hear from Rob Collins from Hope Inc., our local fair housing organization. And then I'm going to come back on and go over some facts and information about fair housing. I call it Did You Know? And then we're going to open up for a discussion. Let you ask questions, give us your comments, and let's continue the conversation. If while one of our speakers is speaking, you have a question and you don't want to forget it, please put it in the chat, and Sharon is going to read the questions in the chat when we get to the discussion period. And then I'm going to introduce you to the other partners of the Enable project. And then we're going to have a short survey about the training today.
My name is Fred Christian Jr. I am a disabled community activist from the social media organization #Impact. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And today I'm here to talk to you about affordable housing, the community, and the state of the community in about 5 to 10 minutes. I want to thank my two friends, Ms. LaQuette Paget and Ms. Tawana Akins from A Better Me and Community Collaboration Exchange for joining us today, as well as my friend Susan Kennedy Nanton from Bullets for Life, Lisa Cheryl Bush from Survivors Affected by Violence, and Tracy Brown from Families Affected by Violence, and Ms. Tyesha Anthony from the James and Betty Bush Foundation for joining us today. They'll leave their links in the chat, Debbie, because they want to work with you. So let's get going here. Okay, so last year I was honored enough to talk on this wonderful Zoom. And I made a few points about what it's like to be disabled and live in a community, what I see in a community, what I've learned about a community from being a housing advocate through our sponsor organization, Catalyst Miami.
I'm sorry, Fred. Well, 1 second. Can you slow down just a little bit for the interpreters? You have
yeah, sure,
real and
sure.
Spanish interpreters. No worries.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so last year, I'll go back. Last year, I was honored to be and blessed to be on this program. And I learned a lot through our sponsor organization, Catalyst Miami, and the HEAL program, which is a housing advocacy and justice program, which teaches advocates like me how to advocate better for others in the community on issues of housing, fair housing, redlining, etc. But I was blessed enough this year to go with my partners from Community Collaboration Exchange to a peace walk and information session one Sunday last year in July to Overtown. I have been talking about, let me move over a little bit here, get a little more comfortable. I have been talking about the deplorable conditions I would see on TV with some of these buildings and some of these places. And after Champlain Towers happened, which is in Surfside, it really did something to me, and it really, really affected me in a good way. It saddened me, yes, but it affected me in a good way where I knew that I needed to say things when I could about the plight of housing and how people were living. And disabled people especially, elderly people especially, and people of color and people that are Latino too, and subpar, substandard conditions, which is part of my assignment. So I'm just going to tell you a few facts right now. First of all, in Miami-Dade County, the average rent is $3,000. I Googled this week. Broward County is $2,200, which is not that much of a difference. Now you have to make approximately $3,500 per month to live in Miami-Dade County, approximately the same in Broward. The sad part is, who is making that money that's living there? Most persons with disability basically are making between what I get, about $608 a month, to approximately maybe $1,000 a month. That means they can't make rent unless they're living in a rent subsidized place, which there's few and far of them between, and they're very hard to get. Now, if you are fortunate enough to get that, you'll be okay. But if you're not, and you have to go in the market and buy something or rent something, you're going to pay approximately maybe $600, $700, $800, and the places are not very good. The neighborhood I visited was in the garden section of Overtown, and you would not believe it. The buildings were built between approximately 1948 to 1970, and they were so run down and decaying, it was disgusting. There must have been 20 buildings around this neighborhood, and they were all falling apart, and the conditions were terrible. You could not even walk on the sidewalk because there were so many hypodermic needles from people using drugs and things like that, which was disgusting. Disabled persons and people that are poor should not be living in filth. I said this before when I talked about the video I saw on Channel 10 from, it was Civic Towers in downtown Miami, having trash in the building and filth in the building, elevators that don't work, many things, especially for persons with disabilities. If we live in a high rise or a 3-story or more building, we need an elevator that works. And I will tell you a story. There was a lady I saw on Channel 10 about 2 months ago, and she was elderly and disabled. She was a cancer patient. The elevator broke in the building, and code enforcement and everybody had been hassling the landlord to get this fixed and bothering him and pestering him. Did not get fixed. This woman had cancer, and her brothers had to take her down 3 to 5 flights of steps every day to get her in her bus on a manual wheelchair to get her for treatment. They would not allow her to return to her own home, and she unfortunately passed away in a facility, which should not have happened because she wanted to die at home and be at home because of their neglect. So we see in many homes and many properties that are run down, old, decaying. We had a fire in Miami Gardens, at a major fire of a place that had 200 units. 200 families currently are displaced in Miami-Dade County and Miami Gardens because of neglect through buildings and maintenance. 200 families, we now struggling to find places to live right now. Many are joining them because of the high rents. Many are joining them because of unsafe conditions, because I will say this. Certain portions of places are not safe to live in. They're not perfect. You go to Liberty City, you go to Overtown, you go to any portions like that, it's very dangerous. And the people that are poor, they're struggling, they're working hard, many of them. They don't deserve, especially persons with disabilities, to live in those conditions where a bullet can fly at any time because someone's angry at someone. Our conditions in our homes and neighborhoods must be safe, they must be clean, and they must be accessible. Buildings must be accessible in terms of wheelchair access, in terms of elevator access, and in terms of safety, and in terms of cleanliness and hygiene. We cannot have trash laying around and abject filth everywhere. In the neighborhood of 62nd Avenue, I'll have Tawana put this in the chat. We adopted a street in Liberty City for Community Collaboration Exchange this year because it was so filthy by a bus stop, we took it upon ourselves to clean the street. I want to say thank you, Tawana and LaQuette, for continuing doing that. Please put that in the chat if you can to tell them where that is. We adopted a street for our Plant Love initiative, and we're cleaning streets. That's how bad this is. The neighborhoods are dirty, the buildings are dirty and run down. Who really wants to live like that? I mean, we've been crying to the state legislature for help for the past 5 years with the rents. They've had a tin ear to it because their agenda is far from ours. Their agenda is a little bit far from ours, but we're doing the best we can with it, but we need help, and we need a lot of help in this community. Lots of help. People are struggling, people are starving, people are just fighting to survive. I mean, you go out your door, you face gunfire. You go anywhere, you face gunfire. You go out your door and you're struggling to pay rent. Many families are struggling and having to work 2 and 3 jobs, leaving their kids unattended, and that's making the kids make bad choices. People are food insecure. Many people that live in these neighborhoods, and some of them are disabled and elderly, have to drive miles to a grocery store because there's no Publix, Winn-Dixie, or Walmart that they can go get their food at. There's a neighborhood store that, for instance, when we were in Overtown, a friend of mine needed a bottle of water. They wanted to charge $5 for one single 12-ounce bottle of water. Yes, $5 for that. That's outrageous. So our communities need love, and we need you guys to get involved in our communities. We need you to care about our communities and the people in them. Disabled persons especially. We need ramps. We need flat sidewalks. We need clean, safe conditions. No bullets, no needles, no nothing on the ground, no garbage, no roaches, no filth, and working elevators. I want to just conclude this by saying thank you to everybody who's supporting me today. And I yield my time, and thank you, everybody. God bless.
Thank you, Fred. Your words are very powerful, and we can feel your emotion when you speak.
Okay, I'm just going to ask Tawana to just leave her information in the chat and look web, please.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Justine. Justine and I have been friends for many years, and Justine has just started to work at our organization part-time as our newsletter editor and social media maven. As I was planning this training, I thought it would be great to hear from Justine and let her share with you her journey as it relates to housing and how she had to transform her home after her injury. Justine, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you, and just let me know when you want me to move the slides forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Debbie. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm so honored to be here today. My name is Justine Chichester. I'd like to speak with you about my journey and the challenges I faced making my home truly accessible for a wheelchair user after suffering a spinal cord injury and hydrocephalus. So a little bit of a background about me. In September 2014, I fell in front of our home while walking our dog in the rain. It was a freak accident, and as a result of the fall, I suffered a thoracic spinal cord injury and subsequent hydrocephalus, which ultimately left me without any sensation and paralyzed from the chest down. I was labeled paraplegic by my neurosurgeons and by my physicians, and my therapists in the rehab center prepared me as best they could to live my new life as a wheelchair user. Coming home in a wheelchair posed many new challenges for me, the largest of which was making our home accessible. Years before my injury, when my husband John and I were searching for our first home, never ever did it occur to me at that time to even be concerned about steps or door widths or the heights of kitchen countertops or even accessible bathrooms. Looking back now, I'm thankful we luckily ended up purchasing a newer construction home as opposed to some of the older homes we had been looking at that had many steps, smaller doorways, and much, much higher kitchen countertops. This would have made my efforts to make our home accessible that much more difficult after suffering my injuries. Luckily for me, since our home was constructed more recently, it was much more accessible than those older homes would have been for me. When I came home in a wheelchair, I could get in and out of all the rooms and bathrooms in our home with ease from my chair, The bathrooms were fully accessible to me, although we did have to add some grab bars around the toilets, which was a simple fix. And the kitchen countertops in my home were luckily the perfect height to prepare food, cook, and even eat off of from my wheelchair. This is unfortunately not the case for everyone who comes home after a spinal cord injury. Many recent SCI survivors, many friends of mine, face daunting and overwhelming tasks and costs to simply modify their homes so they can live every day as a wheelchair user. So while I was lucky with much of the existing accessibility in my home, there was still one problem, or should I say two problems. The 2 steps to enter and exit our home. Seems like not such a big deal until you become a wheelchair user. And then those 2 steps are a huge deal. How was I going to get in and out of the house? My husband and I looked for solutions. Our first solution was to purchase a ramp online. It was very, very temporary. I think we have a picture of the one we got. That actually looks a lot more sturdy than the one that showed up. I couldn't pick it up myself. And when it was put down by someone else, it wasn't sturdy enough to hold the weight of me in the chair without someone pushing me. These are things that we never considered before. This wasn't going to work. I didn't have my independence. I couldn't wait for someone to put out the ramp for me, bring it back up every time I wanted to leave the house or come back in. So I contacted several companies to come out and give me estimates to install a more permanent ADA compliant ramp in front of our home. These are things I had to learn about, but the cost was astronomical, upwards of $6,000 at the time, not something that we could afford at all. My physical therapist asked me if I had heard of the Florida Brain and Spine program during my stay at Jackson Memorial Rehab. I hadn't, but I immediately looked them up and contacted them. He thought they would be a great resource for me. Turns out they really were. They were a life changer. The Florida Brain and Spine program, it turns out, is administered by the Florida Department of Health. And according to their website, their purpose is to provide all eligible residents who sustain a traumatic brain injury or spinal cord injury the opportunity to obtain the necessary services that will enable them to return to an appropriate level of functioning in their community. Also from their website, it says their programs are for eligible adult and pediatric clients, and they provide direct case management and resource facilitation. This is accomplished by employing a statewide system of case managers and rehabilitation technicians. The program also employs regional managers who supervise staff in their region and who oversee the operation, development, and evaluation of the program services and supports at the local level. So just for reference, this became very important for me. The state definition of a traumatic brain injury is an insult to the skull, brain, or its covering, resulting from external trauma, which produces an altered state of consciousness or anatomic, motor, sensory, cognitive, or behavioral deficit. The state definition of a traumatic spinal cord injury is a lesion to the spinal cord resulting from external trauma with evidence of significant involvement of 2 of the following: motor deficit, sensory deficit, or bowel and bladder dysfunction. So after contacting them, a case manager came out to my home and interviewed me. She got my medical records and took an assessment of our home and what I would actually need to become more independent. They ultimately determined that I thankfully qualified for their services. I actually met both criteria because I had a spinal cord injury and a brain injury. According to the state definitions, I qualified for both. They would ultimately coordinate and pay for a licensed contractor to come out to our home and thankfully install an ADA compliant wheelchair ramp, as well as coordinate driving instruction. There it is. Isn't it great? As well as coordinate driving instructions for me to begin driving using hand controls. Thank you, Debbie, for that slide. After 6 weeks of driving lessons, the Florida Brain and Spine program also paid and coordinated having the new hand controls installed in my car through a company called InMotion Mobility. So the program's ultimate goal is to get you to be as independent as possible. And that is exactly what this very important resource did for me. I can now exit and enter my home with ease whenever I want, just like everybody else. Seems like such a simple thing, but I realize now how much I took it for granted once it was taken from me. You can find out lots of information on this program on their website, the Florida Brain and Spine program at the Florida Department of Health. So through many, many years of rigorous physical therapy, I'm thankful to say that I continue it to this day, and I'm now defying the odds, and I'm walking, actually, even though they told me I never would, using a walker. I think we have a picture of me and the walker and my ramp, don't we? But the accessibility of my home has never been more important, as I still use my wheelchair for many, many tasks every day. So I still use the ramp every day, whether I'm walking or whether I'm in my chair. While I'm so grateful to have found this wonderful resource in the Florida Brain and Spine program, accessibility is still always an issue when I leave my home in a wheelchair or using my walker, especially going to friends and family's homes. Those are my aunts and my mom. I have had to be lifted in my wheelchair into friends' homes because there were way too many steps to get in. Also, I have been forced to stay in one area of some houses because of uneven areas or steps or both. So while the concern of accessibility has been relieved for me on my home front, the issues are still very present in my life every single day when I leave the house, especially if I'm going to someone's home. Most friends will tell us, yes, our homes are accessible, don't worry. But when I ultimately arrive, they quickly discover how inaccessible that one tiny little step truly is. We're all still learning. And while the majority of people are so accommodating and will help at a moment's notice, the anxiety of whether or not I'll be able to get in when I arrive always still remains. Thank you so much. That's it, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justine. That was fabulous. Thank you. We're now gonna bring Besa virtually back with us to give us a guided body scan. This will reset your nervous system and mindfulness. And then we're gonna get ready for our next speaker, Rob. So I'm gonna hopefully get Besa to speak for us and continue with our guided body scan.
So let us engage in resetting our nervous systems. Let us take 3 cleansing breaths, inhaling through the nose and exhaling completely out of the mouth. Inhaling again through your nose and exhaling completely out of your mouth. And taking a moment with this next breath to drop into your body. And then make an intention to notice your experience in the body. I want you to localize where you feel any tension in your body right now. And do a mental awareness to release that tension. Now I want you to notice how you are feeling in this moment. What thoughts are arising? And now I'm going to invite you, we're going to remove some tension from our face and our heads because we store a lot. when we have to deal with problems and stress. And so as you're able, you can either massage your scalp. If you want to do this without using your hands, you may just set the intention of releasing tension in your scalp. And then as you are able, moving to release tension in your face, wherever you feel tension. And you can either do this by placing your hands in circular motions, moving your face, or with the intention of noticing what is happening with your face, relaxing it internally. And do it around your eyes, where we hold a lot of tension in our temples. And so now I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to actively take in. And if it feels comfortable for you, to either put your hands over your heart or feel a connection to the area of your heart. And I want you to listen to the following. May I be well, loving, and peaceful. May all beings be well, loving, and peaceful. May I be at ease in my body, feeling the ground beneath my seat and feet, feeling my back, enjoying breath as it rises and falls and rises. May I know and be intimate with body and mind, whatever its feeling or mood, calm or agitated, tired or energetic, irritated or friendly. As we breathe in and out, aware moment by moment of the risings and passings. May I be attentive and gentle towards my own discomfort and suffering. May I be attentive and grateful for my own joy and well-being. May I move towards others freely and with openness. May I receive others with sympathy and understanding. May I move towards the suffering of others with peaceful and attentive confidence. May I continually cultivate the ground of peace for myself and others, and persist mindful and dedicated to this work, independent of results. May I know that my peace and the world's peace are not separate, that our peace in the world is the result of our work for justice and equity and inclusion. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. Now take a moment to reflect and observe what has come up for you. It could be a physical sensation, a memory, an emotion, or a thought. And using no judgment, just notice what came up. And then take a breath and feel yourself sitting in your chair and back in the room together. Thank you.
Now we're going to hear from Rob Collins. He is the Education and Outreach Coordinator at HOPE, Inc. HOPE is the first nonprofit fair housing agency organized in the state of Florida and has been responsible for bringing fair housing discriminatory issues out of the hidden corners of the housing industry. HOPE's mission is to fight housing discrimination in Miami-Dade and Broward counties and to ensure equal housing opportunities throughout Florida. Rob, I'm going to turn it over to you and just let me know when you want me to move the slides forward.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so hello everyone. I'm Rob Collins. I am with Hope Incorporated. We fight discrimination in housing. We tell people about their rights, and then if somebody thinks that they are facing discrimination, they can call us. I'm a lawyer. We help them out. Everything we do is free. Can you advance the slide, Debbie? So there is an explanation of what I just said on the screen. We have been around for 35 years, and we cover all of Miami-Dade and Broward counties. Next slide, please. So fair housing laws come from different levels of government. Some are federal laws covering the entire country. Some are state laws. Some are county laws. And then there may be additional laws depending on what city you live in. Next slide, please, Debbie. So we talk to people about fair housing. That is, we talk to people about not practicing housing discrimination. And the most important reason not to discriminate in housing is that it is the right thing to do. Whether or not it's against the law, the most important reason to practice fair housing is because everyone should be treated with dignity. But, as it turns out, there are fair housing laws. So people who discriminate illegally will face sanctions. Additionally, if somebody is in the business of providing housing, it is helpful to them to open their options up as business people and to give themselves as many different clients to choose from as possible. But finally, these laws are only becoming more expansive as time goes on. That is, only more people as time goes on are being protected by anti-discrimination laws. Next slide, please. So who counts as a housing provider? Really, it's anybody whose job has to do with your housing. It could be a realtor, it could be a landlord, it could be a condo association. And when I say job has to do with your housing, I don't mean job like they get paid for it, because many members of condo associations do not do it for payment. They are actually volunteers. I just mean people who are in a position. They have the job of whatever it is. Next slide, please. After the Civil War, the U.S. government tried to make fair housing the law of the United States. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 said, well, if you're a citizen, regardless of your race, if you were born in the United States, no one can discriminate against you in housing because of your race. That was a very big step, but unfortunately, it did not spell out enough about what would happen to people who did discriminate in housing. Next slide, please. So, 30 years later, there was a civil rights lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court. In this case, which is called Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court upheld or supported the idea that segregation was legal. So, while you can't discriminate based on race and tell people no, the court said, well, you can still separate people, which honestly is still the same thing. Next slide, please. So on the screen now is an example of how separation and segregation is still often discrimination. And on the screen is water fountains, a colored water fountain and a white drinking fountain. They are very unequal. Next slide, please. This picture is of people at a public lunch counter in a white area, but a black person is simply trying to sit at the lunch counter, and she and her white friends are being tormented. Next slide, please. This is a picture from Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, where a black student is trying to attend what was previously an all-white high school, and she is being shouted at, and in the very far back you can see the law enforcement officials who had to be brought to the school to force integration of the school. So, separate but equal was not working out. Next slide, please. This on the screen is a map of Miami, where people of different races are depicted by different colored dots. And there is actually one dot for every single person, and the color of the dot is according to what they reported in the 2010 census. So if you are able to see the screen, you can see that the segregation is pretty significant. Hispanic people are represented by orange dots, black people are represented by green dots, white people are represented by blue dots, Asian people are represented by red dots, and other people are represented by this purple kind of dot. And you can see, based on where the different colored dots are on this map of Miami, that the segregation is stark. Next slide, please. So, in the face of this, the US government in 1964 decided, you know what? If you get federal money, you cannot discriminate in public places, in jobs, and in housing. Next slide, please. That was a very significant move, but unfortunately, so much housing was still privately owned and not publicly funded, and as such, not affected by that Civil Rights Act of 1964. Next slide, please. So then, in 1968, the government intervened again and said, okay, now, whether you get public funding or private funding, no one can discriminate anymore based on protected classes. Next slide, please. So, what are protected classes? It's those characteristics, groups of people that you are very used to hearing about. No one can discriminate based on race, gender, etc. Next slide, please. On the screen now, those are the different protected classes that we are protected by here in Miami-Dade and Broward counties, which is Hope's service area. Next slide, please. At the federal level, no matter where you go in the country, you are protected against discrimination based on race, color, national origin, and religion. Those were the original protected classes in 1968 when the Fair Housing Act was passed. 6 years later, they also added gender discrimination. And then 14 years after that, they added familial status discrimination, which means whether or not you have children, and disability discrimination. That became illegal under federal law in 1988. Next slide, please. So, what kind of housing is covered by fair housing laws in general? Really, it's any housing that is open to the public. Whether you are renting or buying, whether it's a mansion or an apartment or a duplex or a townhome, if it's open to the public, that housing is probably covered. Next slide, please. Some exceptions exist if you are not listing that housing publicly and you just tell your friend, "Oh, I have a room to rent in my basement," you may meet an exception. If you are sharing the space with your potential new tenant, you might meet an exception. Also, certain housing that is operated by religious organizations is also an exception to these fair housing laws, like a convent. You have to be a nun in a convent. Next slide, please. So people ask, what about senior living facilities? The short answer is they can engage in age discrimination as long as they are following HUD guidelines regarding senior living facilities. Next slide, please. So, if it's outside of that list of protected classes, it is technically legal. So your credit score is not a protected class. If a housing provider says to you, and sorry, please let me know if it's too loud where I am, I can switch to calling in on my cell phone. But your credit score is not on the list of illegal reasons to keep you out. So, if a housing provider says to you, your credit's not good enough, you can't live here, they can totally say that. But they have to be treating everybody the same. Next slide, please. So on the screen now are reasons that it's illegal to discriminate in housing. That is actions that would be illegal to do based on the protected classes. All you need to remember is that it's illegal to do anything to somebody in a housing transaction because of those protected classes. So it is illegal because of your disability, for example, to tell you that housing is not available when it really is, or to only show you housing in a certain area because of your disability. Next slide, please. It would be illegal to give you different services in housing because of your disability, or to inspect your place different than they would if you didn't have a disability. But again, these are only examples. Any treatment that you receive in housing because of your disability or your race or your gender, any treatment, however it plays out, will be illegal. Next slide, please. It's also illegal to treat you differently once you've moved in. So let's say they let you have whatever apartment you want, but then you are subjected to anti-religious jokes or sexual harassment. As far as the law is concerned, if you are being harassed, that housing provider may just as well have said no to you in the first place. Next slide, please. Occupancy standards also come up. It may happen that there are too many people in your family to comfortably live or legally live in a certain unit. Maybe there is zoning that says only 4 people can live in this apartment. If your family has 6 people, a housing provider can legally say, sorry, there are too many of you. What they cannot say is, well, when we said 4 people, we meant 2 people, or 2 adults and their 2 children. That, saying which 4 people, that would be illegal. Next slide, please. Having a disability under the Fair Housing Act is pretty broad. It actually just means that you have a problem doing a major life activity. Seeing, hearing, caring for yourself, walking, bathing. If you have a problem doing any of these things, you will count as having a disability under the Fair Housing Act. Next slide, please. They might be problems diagnosed by a doctor. They might be problems that you did to yourself through addiction. They might be problems that are the result of an accident. They might be problems that you were born with. It does not matter how you came to have your problem with your daily life. If you have the problem, you will count as having a disability. And these are just examples on the screen. Next slide, please. A housing provider can be made to make a reasonable accommodation, which is a change in rules. Maybe they have a no animals policy, but they let you have your seeing eye dog. A housing provider might also be made to make a reasonable modification. Maybe they are physically doing something to the living space. like lowering the counters in the kitchen or installing a ramp for a wheelchair user. Also, housing that is made to be occupied after March of 1991, which is when these laws went into effect, must be accessible. Next slide, please. So, common mistakes that housing providers make where they get themselves in trouble with fair housing laws include making rules about people instead of about behavior. So they say, no kids. Just a second. They say, no kids, because they think kids are noisy. That is going to get them in trouble. Also, common mistakes might include harassing people, not applying their policies consistently, or not training their employees. Next slide, please. So our suggestions are the opposite of all of those common mistakes. Instead of saying no kids because kids are noisy, make your rules about the behavior that you have a problem with. Make a rule that says no noise, regardless of who is making the noise. Be consistent with policies, don't take things personally, and train your employees. Those are all fair housing suggestions. Next slide, please. If somebody is found in violation of fair housing laws, they can be made to pay money. They can be made to take actions. Every case is different. Next slide, please. Somebody who thinks that they are facing discrimination can complain to the government at the federal level, at the state level, or at the county level, or at the city level. They can also, that person who thinks that they face discrimination, they can also go directly to court and file a lawsuit. Next slide, please. Or if they are in Miami-Dade or Broward counties, they can come to us at Hope Incorporated. Last slide, please. Our contact info for telephone users is on the screen. If you would like to reach us and you're not writing it down, you can certainly reach out to the people with the Enable project, and they can put you in touch with us. And this is a slide covering what are the protected classes, and it again shows our phone numbers. So thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you certainly to the Enable Project for the opportunity to speak today. And I'll turn it back over to Deb.
Hi, Rob. Thank you so much. Are you able to stay for some questions in a little bit when we finish the next section?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm just turning it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So at the beginning of the training, I talked to you about the importance of the small modifications or accommodations that can be provided for independence. And you saw Justine talk about that in terms of her own experience. And the main issue I want you to take away with this is to leave your mind open to the possibilities for independent living. We as a community, we need to get rid of the lingering myths or stereotypes that many people have about people with disabilities. Yes, people with disabilities can live independently in the community. And as with other types of discrimination, we need to remove the attitudinal barriers that say they can't do that, or they must be lying about their disability, or that accommodation you want, it's just not possible. Now I'm going to switch to some did you know facts, because these are about fair housing, and it's going to expand on what Rob was talking about, but just some little known facts that I wanted to share with you today. Did you know that you can have a pit bull as a service animal or emotional support animal in Miami-Dade County, even though we have an ordinance that says that this breed of dog is illegal? However, if you're a person with a disability that has a pit bull as your emotional animal, service animal, or your emotional support dog, then you're allowed to keep that dog. Having a pit bull is a reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability. Someone can only say no if the dog is a direct threat. But the city or county can't make that decision based on a breed. They need to base it on the individual behavior of each dog. I love this one. Rob was talking to you about ways to complain if there's been discrimination. Most people don't know that for the past 10 years, more than half of all fair housing complaints are based on disability discrimination. So remember that whole list of protected classes that Rob showed you? Out of all of that, 50% of the complaints are based on disability discrimination. It's a staggering number. As Rob was telling you, you have a choice of where you complain. You can complain to HUD, the federal agency. You can complain at the state level. In some communities, the local level, or you can file directly in court. So you have lots of options of how you can complain and hopefully get relief when you've been discriminated against in housing. Most people don't know that domestic violence shelters are covered under the Fair Housing Act, and they must allow accommodations for people with disabilities. So a shelter can't say, no, you can't bring your service animal with you to the shelter, or no, we don't have an accessible space for you. That would be a violation against the Fair Housing Act. Did you know that if you're a person with a disability, you're entitled to ask for a closer spot for where you park, even if your building has assigned you a spot? You can request a reasonable accommodation because of your disability to need a different spot. As Rob was telling you, one of the exceptions in fair housing is the 55 plus housing developments, or places for people that are 55 and older can live with different rules. But if you have a family member under 18 years old, that person can be allowed to live in that environment as a live-in aid. And it would be the person with the disability asking for a reasonable accommodation to have their family member be the person that helps them, even though that family member might be under 55 years old. The next one, did you know that you can't tell a person with a service animal or an emotional support animal that that animal can't go anywhere on the property? So they can't say, oh no, your dog can't go in the elevator, or your dog can't go in the common areas, or your dog can't go to the playground. That would be considered discrimination and against the Fair Housing Act. And here's our last one. In housing that receives federal financial assistance, from public housing to college dormitories, the housing provider is responsible to pay for installing all required accommodations, such as grab bars or a ramp if there were stairs, or any other accommodation that the person with the disability requests in order to be able to live in that place. Most people don't realize that college dormitories are included in the Fair Housing Act. Now I'd like to open it for our discussion. Sharon, were there any questions put into the chat?
There were no questions in the chat, but several people weighed in and said, thank you for sharing the Judy Heumann video. And they wanted to thank Fred, Justine, and Rob for great presentations. But I have no questions in the chat.
All right, if anybody on would like to ask a question, please use the raise your hand icon, and then we'll call on you and let you ask your question or make your comment.
I don't see any hands.
All right, let's give it a few more seconds and let people think. Rob, Justine, or Fred, is there anything you want to add after hearing the conversation today?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry about that. Yes, Debbie. I want to just add that I was thinking about this through this, and the past few years, unfortunately, where I'm living, we've had a few car break-ins and incidents happen. Nothing major, but it's kind of unsettling when you're living around disabled and elderly persons and their cars get vandalized. And one time we had the windows shot through, either accidentally or purposely, we're not sure. And we need to do something about making sure lighting is better in these communities too, for elderly and disabled people, especially persons with disabilities. We need to make sure basically the Christmas tree theory is for our neighborhoods where they're bright enough where everybody can see to get in and out their hallways, in and out their cars, in and out their doors, so they have access as a part of it. We also need to make sure there's better security too in some of these communities because they're not providing it, and they threaten you with basically raising your rent if they have an on-site guard, because the police can't be everywhere. So there's a couple other little things that are going into this that need to be addressed overall community-wide in terms of people's overall safety in communities. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Fred.
I would just add that when you talk about half of the complaints coming from people with disabilities, the number one hardest thing about fair housing is getting people to complain. So anyone on this presentation today, if you think you're facing discrimination, don't let yourself be psyched out by thinking, oh, I need a lawyer, oh, I need money, it takes all this time, whatever. Because when people face discrimination, it's a high barrier sometimes just to get them to complain about it. But when you don't complain, when you don't raise a stink, those places that do the discrimination, they just keep doing it because they're not being held accountable for it. So if you think you're facing discrimination, even on a hunch, please report it.
That's great advice, Rob. Thank you.
Debbie, I have a question for you or Matt, maybe for the future or Rob. Why, I was just thinking about this from what I said. Why can't the safety aspect be included in accommodations for everybody? I mean, really, I'm not saying that a security guard, but that would help, but at least the lighting for properties and maybe cameras too, to keep people safe. Why can't that be an accommodation that helps people? I mean, why can't we go the extra mile and maybe advocate for people to have the safe community in addition to the accessible community? Then it's a win-win.
Rob, you have any thought?
I mean, I would just say that's a fair question, and certainly I would guess that somebody's accommodation or modification has had to do with lighting, but to have it done generally for all of the housing, that's a great idea. All I can say is that's a great idea.
Yeah, Fred, my only thing that I would say to you, because I hear it in my head from Matt all the time, a reasonable accommodation or modification must have a nexus between the disability and the person requesting the accommodation. So if it's broad and overreaching, it probably would not, it would either be denied or not considered a valid request. Because the key truly is, right, Rob, you've got to have the nexus between the person with the disability and the accommodation that they're requesting.
I was just thinking in general, if a person say had their apartment or condo and it was not well lit, not even crime wise, and say Aunt Bessie doesn't see well, right? Or she can't walk real well, and she doesn't see well and the place is half dark and she falls. Not anything bad like she gets robbed or hurt. I'm just saying if she falls and say breaks her ankle because she couldn't see to get in the door, or if she couldn't see because there was a curve to step up because there was no cutout. That's what I'm saying. If there's a lighting there, if there was lighting there, it'll make it easier for people to see. And if there's cameras there, it'll keep them safe. That's all I'm asking for accommodation. I'm not asking for people to have an escort to walk people to police to do things every hour in the hour. I'm just saying little cosmetic things that we can add to what we do to make it overall better.
So I would just say, in response to exactly what you said and the words you used, if it's cosmetic, then it will call into question, well, is it a necessity for the person to enjoy and use the housing? And that's kind of the meat and potatoes of a reasonable accommodation or modification. Are these changes that need to be made for an individual, for them to use and enjoy the housing the same as anyone else? So it may be I have low vision, I need more lighting than other people so that I can enjoy it at the same level they do. It may very well be that I need that, but if it's a security camera, that may be a little stretched out in terms of, well, are you going to enjoy the property just as much as everyone else? Like, we have to bring everyone to the same baseline. So it's very case by case, but it's a great question.
Yeah, and the last part that Matt always says is someone has to make the request first before there can be discrimination and someone saying no. Right, Rob?
Yeah, it won't count as being denied if you never asked in the first place. That is certainly true.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Fred, for your comments, and we will follow up with this as we continue on with the training. I want to make sure that we save time to talk about the partners, because it is not just Catalyst Miami or DIG that makes the Enable project happen. Camilo is here, so he wants a few moments to let you know more about Catalyst Miami. So Camilo, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Debbie. And thank you to all our presenters. Thank you also to Besa, who is not here personally, but virtually. Thank you to all of the ASL and language translators and interpreters. This has been a really, really amazing session. As you know, it's been recorded and we're going to provide it to everyone so that you can go over it again and also so that you can share it. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them and or pass them on to any of the presenters. And I'm sure they'll be glad to answer any questions you have, or, you know, if you're interested in collaboration or anything like that. You know, we hope this to be an opportunity that creates more opportunity for all of us. So indeed, as Debbie said, the Enable Project is a coalition of organizations. We're working together mostly in social justice and civic engagement spaces, but also we've branched out to technology. We've branched out to all kinds of social issues, which has brought us closer to many different kinds of institutions. So, you know, there are no limits to the work of creating inclusion and access in Miami-Dade County, and then hopefully creating ripple effects for other counties and other parts of the US as well. So the Center for Independent Living is one of the other partners. They were not able to be here today, so I'm going to just share with you that the CILSF, or Center for Independent Living of South Florida, opened its doors in 1993 to address the needs of people with disabilities following Hurricane Andrew. Thousands of people seeking assistance with transitioning back into community and their lives after such a devastation. Since then, they have grown to provide a variety of services to our peers in the disability community in Miami-Dade County. Our ASL interpreters.
Excuse me, this is the interpreter. Could you please slow down a bit?
Yes, my apologies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, our ASL interpreters were provided, you know, through the Center for Independent Living, and we're very grateful for them. They're also providing a series of talks on healthcare called Med Talks, and we'll have more information about that in the coming days and weeks. Do we have someone from the Advocacy Network on Disabilities who can share a few words? They have also been a partner from the very beginning. But if we don't have anyone, I'll just tell you that they are a coalition of family members, community service providers, and advocates of individuals with disabilities and other public, private, and governmental organizations with an original focus on individuals with developmental disabilities, but also providing support and services to individuals with physical, sensory, and emotional and other disabilities. They have played a big role in the Enable Project. They have been a partner from the beginning. They're part of the core partnership that makes the Enable Project what we are. And we're incredibly grateful to them. As for Catalyst Miami, we're a nonprofit organization. We were founded by today Mayor Daniela Levin Cava, and our mission is to build power with low wealth and working class communities throughout Miami-Dade County to collectively advance justice and achieve shared prosperity. Our vision is a just democracy and cooperative society where everyone can build wealth, lead healthy lives, and thrive. Of course, we have our amazing consultants as well. Reverend Besa is one of them. Fred is also one of our consultants, and then Mark McGuire. I don't know if Mark is here today, but he will be leading or co-leading one of our workshops coming up. But anyway, the Enable Project, you know, regardless of who the core members are, it's for everyone. Like I said, we're going to create a recording from this presentation, and we will share the slides and, you know, any information that you need. We're going to provide it to everyone, and it's also going to be housed in our individual websites as well as in our LinkedIn page. So we want to make sure that this resource is out there for everyone, not just today, but, you know, in the future. And any and all the work that we do is always going to be available to everyone. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Debbie to wrap us up.
Thank you so much, Camilo. The Center for Independent Living asked us to give you a link to their calendar of events. They do a lot of social events, and you're welcome to attend their events or join their events. As Camilo was telling you, the presentation materials are available on many of our websites, but on the DIG website, they're under resources and under our YouTube channel. There's an Enable Project playlist. So you can get accessible PDFs of the slides and see the videos. All the videos have the sign language and the captioning embedded within them. Today's presentation should be ready in about a week and available for you to see. I also wanted to tell you about DIG's Supper Social Club. We're back for the first time since COVID. It's going to be March 22nd at 6:30 p.m. We call this our neurodiverse dinner. It's open to people with disabilities, people without disabilities, and we all just have a meal together. Everybody pays for their own food, and you're welcome to RSVP and join us. You can RSVP through our DIG website. On the calendar tab, you'll see the Supper Social Club. And last, we wanted to say thank you for spending the last 2 hours with us. And we have a QR code. If you put your phone up to it, it will have a survey about the training today. So if you have a moment and can fill out the survey, it helps guide the work we do in the future. So thank you again. Thank you, interpreters. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful afternoon.